Former Vice President and 2024 presidential candidate Mike Pence was on Meet the Press yesterday, during which he criticized Donald Trump and talked about whether or not he would pardon Trump if the former president was convicted of a federal crime.
I just think the question is premature. I think we need to let the courts do their job and let this case work its way through our judicial system. And if I have the great privilege of being president of the United States, as I did when I was a governor, we would evaluate any request for pardon for any American.
If you were President Biden, would you pardon him right now?
I just think this whole matter is incredibly divisive for the country. Look, in 2016, Donald Trump promised to govern as a conservative. And I'm proud to say that we did for 4 years under the Trump-Pence administration. But he makes no such promise today. Not only has he been walking away from a clear commitment to the right to life, but look, we have a national debt the size of our nation's economy. Joe Biden's policy is insolvency. He won't even talk about the 70% of the federal budget that represents entitlements that's driving that debt.
Does President Trump want to talk about it?
Donald Trump's position on the national debt is identical to Joe Biden's.
Joining us now, national politics reporter for The Hill, Julia Manchester. Julia, thanks for being here. So Pence appears to be walking a tightrope when it comes to Donald Trump. He has been critical of him on a few matters, including, of course, January 6th. We just heard some of it there on Meet the Press yesterday. But, of course, he is so closely aligned with Trump, so associated with Trump for 4 years. How the people you talk to in Pence world, how do they see him navigating this going forward?
You know, Jonathan, it's similar to the strategy, it seems, that Ron DeSantis's campaign is taking. You know, these two men are very similar to Donald Trump when it comes to their platforms and policies, but they need to differentiate themselves. And obviously, Vice President Pence needs to, because essentially him and Trump are sort of running on the same record. So in that clip, you heard Mike Pence talk about President Trump's, stance on abortion post his presidency. And that's something you're going to see. I think a lot of these other candidates try to take a shot at Donald Trump over. We know that abortion access or anti-abortion measures are very important to Republican primary voters, particularly Republican caucus voters in Iowa. So that's going to be very key, I think, in painting Donald Trump as not necessarily a conservative. And for someone like Mike Pence, someone who's very closely aligned with evangelical voters and grassroots conservative voters, that's going to be pretty easy for him to do. The problem is, though, how well does that play in states that aren't maybe Iowa or South Carolina? How does that play in a New Hampshire that might be a bit more libertarian, for example, and more pro-choice, and how Republicans look at this issue of abortion? So I think that's going to be issue number one there.
So we heard Pence get asked about the possibility of a pardon for Donald Trump. I'll give you a spoiler right now. President Biden is not going to preemptively pardon him. We can set that one aside. But it's become this sort of test, if you will, for a lot of the other Republican candidates, like to figure out how they respond. But I think some of them, and tell us what you're hearing, Julia, are also using it as a bit of an opportunity when asked this question. So tell us, how is the field discussing the possibility of a Trump pardon?
Well, if you want to talk about tightropes, this is definitely one where they're walking a tightrope. I mean, look, you have Vice President Pence not exactly answering that question, trying to play it safe. Ron DeSantis, same thing, saying that he would aggressively use pardons during his administration, but we don't know exactly how he would feel about Trump in particular. For someone like Vivek Ramaswamy, though, he was the one who started this talk about pardons last week when he had that press conference and urged the other 2024 contenders to pledge to pardon Trump. It's just such an awkward situation for a lot of these Republican candidates, because this is an area where you would think Trump would be vulnerable on this topic. But the fact of the matter is, Republicans I talk to say that this idea or this feeling that there is a double standard against Republicans coming from the FBI and the Justice Department is a belief that is very well held, or very tightly held by many many Republican primary and caucus voters. So it's something that I think you're going to hear potentially more candidates talk about in order to appeal to those voters, while at the same time not necessarily saying they're Team Trump.
The Hill's Julia Manchester with some terrific reporting for us this morning. Thank you for joining.